Don't worry, be happy. Einen wunderschönen guten Abend. Sie kennen das schon, die Begrüßung in Deutsch. Und dann wechseln wir auf die jeweilige Sprache. Damit es nicht zu langweilig wird, haben die Kollegen jeder so ein bisschen an ihrem jeweiligen Environment gearbeitet. Wir testen vielfach unsere Kameras aus. Ich habe mich mal in das sogenannte Denkzimmer zurückgezogen und bin bei meinem Sohn zu Gast. Wobei man fairerweise sagen muss, das Gefühl für Ordnung hat er mehr als ich. Also alles, was Sie im Hintergrund sehen, das hat der Vater in kürzester Zeit kreiert. Ja, also für das Thema strukturiertes Chaos eines Genies bin ich nach wie vor zuständig. Wir haben heute das besondere Vergnügen, Clint Oram, den Chief Strategic Officer von SugarCRM, als Gast zu haben. Wir werden trotzdem gleich nach Englisch wechseln, obwohl Clint eine hohe Expertise nicht nur in seinem Fachgebiet und für SugarCRM in den vielen, vielen Jahren, wo er mit dabei ist und als Firmengründer aktiv ist, sondern er versteht auch Deutsch. Er war in Deutschland und hat auch in Deutschland studiert.
Deutsch als Fremdsprache und Theologie, gell?
It is my very special honor to welcome you, and I would love to get you together with our audience in the role that you introduce yourself to our bunch of friendly followers, please.
Outstanding. Well, thank you very much for having me here. I think I hear a little bit of an echo in the background.
You do, and it's probably Thomas's fault.
Of course, it's always mine.
How come?
There we go. Somebody's working with all of the sound equipment. All right, we're set. My name is Clint Oram. It's a pleasure to be here today. Das stimmt, ich spreche auch ein bisschen Deutsch. Als ich jünger war, habe ich an der Heidelberg Universität studiert für ein Jahr, Deutsch als Fremdsprachentheologie. And that's about as far as my German goes, unless I have a beer in my hand. I get much more fluid with my beer. So, but it's early in the day here in California, so das geht noch ein anderes Mal. That'll happen another time. So let's see, a little bit about me, a little bit about SugarCRM. I've spent my entire career in the CRM industry. I started in the CRM industry back in 1999. Where I had been working at Hewlett-Packard for a couple of years on operating systems, coming right out of college. I got my degree in computer science. Frankly, that's a little bit why I also enjoy German. To me, a language is a language, and when you study computer science, you study grammars, you study language composition. You really get deep into languages, and frankly, that took me to German as well. Because I studied German in high school, because you have to study a language for a few years, and I went back to German, and I studied German through both Olive University and then again overseas in Germany for my third year in college. But came out of college with a degree in computer science from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Worked on operating systems because that was cool back in the mid '90s. Sounded cool to me, at least. And then in 1999, I had a colleague who said to me, "Why are you here? You should be at a startup. This is Silicon Valley. You shouldn't be at HP. You should be at a startup." And so I found a young startup that had a lot of exciting energy happening in it. I had a couple of friends working there. I didn't really know the industry. I could just barely spell it. It was CRM. And I joined a company called Octane Software, and I learned the CRM industry as a implementer of their software, running projects for customers and that sort of thing. Got recruited back into the product management team. The company then got bought by another company called Epiphany. So I had this kind of early stage career in CRM of helping customers deploy the software, and then going back into the engineering team and helping them design the software for the future. And then it was in 2004, 5 years later, that myself and two of my colleagues were all working together at Epiphany, decided to start a company. And we started SugarCRM as the first commercial open source business applications company. and we launched our open source project on SourceForge in 2004. We went from concept, we only started talking about the idea in early 2004, and we ended our first year with $7 million of investment capital, our first 20 employees, and $250,000 of revenue after only having started selling in October. So October, November, December, $250,000 in revenue. It was an exciting year, and that was close to 17 years ago. If you see my LinkedIn profile or my Twitter profile, I call myself a non-serial entrepreneur, right? I very much have the entrepreneur mindset. I very much have the entrepreneur approach, but I've just been enjoying myself so much at SugarCRM over these years that I haven't started another company. So there you go. That's a little bit about me.
What was the secret behind that fast success in 2004?
What was the secret? Well, right place, right time. Absolutely. If you remember 2004, we were coming out of the dot-com bust, and there was a lot of pent-up energy in the market to start investing in technology. Yeah. But there's really three big waves that were kicking off at that point, and we took advantage of all three of those waves. One was open source, try before you buy. That was a really important technology wave. Second very important technology wave, one that you can easily argue was more important over time, was software as a service, or what we called on-demand back then. In many cases, in fact, most cases, the vendor can run the software better than you can run it yourself. Yeah. And then the third was the whole idea of subscription billing and the whole idea of earning your customer every year, right? And being really invested in your customer success. And so if you look back at 2004, we really took advantage of all three of those ideas. And by the way, if you think about those three ideas, they're all about putting control in the hands of the customer. They're about empowering the customer. They're about ensuring that the customer has success with their CRM project. And we really took advantage of it. And frankly, a fast killer app that was well designed. Open source got us worldwide distribution almost immediately. And the first person we hired, the very first person that we hired, the fourth employee of the company, was a marketer, a woman named Tara Spalding. And Tara did a fantastic job of just really amplifying our brand into the world. So I think there was no single one thing, Thomas. I think there's all the things coming together and working really well as a team.
Okay, so now if open source was one of the key contributors to success, why abandon it then?
Why abandon it? Yes, boy, that's stepping away from open source here at SugarCRM for me personally was a hard decision, very hard decision. As a company, it wasn't that hard of a decision, to be quite frank. And the reason being there is our customers just weren't caring anymore. It wasn't a topic of consideration. And yeah, you laugh, Marshall, but it's really in the end, what's the purpose of a company? Why does a company exist, right? And you know who asked me this question first 17 years ago was the editor and founder of Selling Power magazine, a gentleman named Gerhard Geschwander. And Gerhard
Gerhard Geschwander, ja, alles klar.
Alles klar. Ein guter Deutscher, natürlich weiß alles.
He is very much in depth in sales. I know him, and I know a colleague of him who wrote a book, which at that time in 2001 we sponsored. And sowieso Gordon, Joshua Gordon. Josh Gordon, and he knows Geschwander, and he made a big fuss about that one, and it was very interesting at that time, having such writers around. And this was exactly on the last DCI show in New York, where we were in the 2001 in September, just several days before it happened, and we have been on Henry on Tops in the Twin Towers. You can imagine that was a very special event, and so everything I memorize. If it's George Oxfandner,
it's burned into your memory forever. Yeah.
This has a very clear memory, and a lot of memories which make me partly sad, and which make me clear how good in what for even if the situation is not as lovely as we would like to have it, and we are annoyed by COVID, that we survived a lot of stuff and we are still there. Yeah, such as what's with the markets. And it's interesting about contacts, old contacts and reflections, such as in your team was also Brad Wilson, and in your team was Manfred Schimmel. And Brad then one day went to Microsoft and got an important role. And now back to the open source approach, and that open source is one interesting part, but it drove
there were a lot
forward.
of it that came out of Epiphany. Brad Wilson, who went on to run CRM at Microsoft. Phil Fernandez and John Miller, who went on to found Marketo. There's and I'm blanking on the gentleman's name who went to Salesforce and became CTO there. Oh, it'll come to me in a minute. But the thing that Gerhard said to us, he said this at the very first conference we ever sponsored. The first time we ever brought together our customers. It wasn't even a conference; it was a user group meeting, and we had Gerhard speak there. And he asked the question to the audience, and it's a question that's been in my mind ever since. What is the purpose of a company? Why does a company exist? And he put that question out to the group, and people asked to build great products, to make money, to employ people, to have a return on investment for the investors, things like that. And he said those are all great points, but they happen after something happens first. The purpose of a company is to create customers. The reason why a company exists is to create customers, to serve your customers. And that's been a guiding light for me since the day I heard it. In fact, I vividly remember standing in the hotel in San Francisco. I don't remember what hotel it was, but I remember the layout. I remember where I was sitting. I remember where Gerhard was standing. I remember the way he was holding the microphone. I remember that moment because it just burned into my memory that the reason why a company exists is to create customers. And so you have to be laser focused on creating customers and delivering what customers value, what they need. And as a technology company, we of course love our technology. We're technologists. We love our technology first. We'll talk about our technology all day long. But if you can't cross that divide between looking inwards at your technology and make the connection to what's the value to your customers, you're going to get left behind. And frankly, we were at risk of having that happen to us at SugarCRM with open source because our customers weren't talking about open source anymore. They were talking about software as a service. They were talking about mobile. They were talking about, and as each phase came along, right? Then they talked about mobile. Then they talked about social. Then it was digital transformation, and now it's artificial intelligence. You have to be focused on delivering value to your customers, to create customers, and as you do that, some of your investments in technology may not be relevant today as they were 15 years ago. And we just found that the open source discussion with our customers just wasn't resonating. What they wanted to hear from us was SaaS, social, AI, and we invested in that, and that's what we did. And it was a and we'll reinvent ourselves again. We're frankly reinventing ourselves right now as we speak, as we brought in a new CEO, my partner Craig Charlton, and new new investors, new owners in Excel KKR, and all of the technology investments that we're doing around artificial intelligence, and how to drive, how to ultimately, how do you make the CRM platform work for you, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want. Let the platform do the work. That's really what you want your technology to do for you. How the technology does it will change over time. And so that's my very long-winded answer, Thomas, of why did we leave open source behind? Because it just really wasn't relevant to our customers anymore. And we knew that because they were telling us that.
Isn't there a difference between talking about it and using it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We still use open source technology. We still contribute to open source projects. In fact, my kind of high level view is, if you look back in 2004, was open source going to win, or was software as a service going to win? Of course, we didn't call it software as a service back in 2004. Like I said, it was on demand, or even ASPs, application service providers. For those of us that are old enough to remember that. But was open source going to win, or is SaaS going to win? Yeah. And I think we know that answer, right? And the interesting thing is, open source powers SaaS, though.
Yeah,
right.
So that's why it's not an either or.
It absolutely, you could argue both won, but from a commercial business perspective, they merge together, and it's really, in the end, what customers value is software as a service, and the cloud and everything that comes along with that. And we had to make some tough choices, and we had small company, limited resources. We had to focus our attention, and we had to focus where our customers were taking us, and that's what we did.
What impact did that have on your ecosystem?
What impact did it have on our ecosystem? In some ways, a big impact. In some ways, no impact. We've always been the authors of the SugarCRM code. We've released the code. There's different type of open source projects, right? So if you think about the Linux project, and a big part of why, if you look at why Red Hat was successful, right? It's because it was the wild, wild west of open source development. There was just a huge amount of collaboration, and they came in as the sheriff, and they put some law and order on top of all this crazy collaboration going on right and left. We had a different model, right? We wrote the code from the beginning. We maintained the copyright to the code. We released the code under the open source license, and we invested. We brought in investors. We invested our own time and energy, and we brought in investors. We were building a company around. That's why we called it commercial open source. In fact, if you were to be very specific about this, we always made sure to describe ourselves as commercial open source, to make sure that we really conveyed the idea that we're in this to build a company. We're in this to build a thriving company. So when we stepped away from the open source project and the open source license, there was certainly a part of our community that didn't want to go with us, and they forked Sugar into other projects, and that's the nature of open source. That happens, and that's I think that's a good thing in the end. That's what drives That's what drives innovation. That's what is a core foundation component of the open source idea. But another part of our ecosystem was really just focused on building on top of Sugar and expanding Sugar and integrating Sugar with other systems and building their own businesses on top of that. And frankly, that was the more vibrant part of our ecosystem in the end, because, especially in the world of CRM, we'll come back to that topic in a moment, especially in the world of CRM. But in the end, developers need to put food on the table, and businesses need to be growing, and again, all the ideas of commercial open source were firmly embraced by a large portion of our community, and when we shifted to a all commercial model, they went right along with us, and we brought the vast majority of our ecosystem with us, and it's working quite well. And I make the point that, in the world of open source software, if you're building databases or security software or operating systems, your customer is the IT department, right? And the IT department has a different view of open source and the freemium model. But when you're building business applications for the VP of sales, business applications for the VP of customer service, they have a different view of the freemium model. And what we found is they didn't really trust the freemium model. Our customer, you know, we early adopters really enjoyed the frictionless aspect of the freemium model and open source as a whole, but we reached a point where the next stage of buyers, the early majority, and they didn't really trust it. They didn't really understand it, and it became an actual impediment to the way we were doing business. And again, just want to be really clear. We from the beginning, we were three CRM guys who found open source. We weren't three open source guys who found CRM. We set out to build a business, and that's been our philosophy. And it can be used against us as a way of describing us as just, you know, a bunch of capitalists or whatever. I'm fine with that, to be honest. It's who I am. So, and I think it really makes sense for what we do. Remember what we do. We do CRM, right? We help companies create customers, right? And all we're saying is we're out to create customers ourselves. And so I feel like that you got to think about open source within the context, or commercial open source within the context of our business and the very purpose and the very value that we're delivering to our customers. Because in the end, to bring it all back to the beginning, what's the point of a company? What's the purpose of a company?
And the purpose of a company, if you are in creating customers, is that you would love to deliver benefit to these dedicated customers. And the moment you are serving a very special customer called IT department, they have their own wish list and their own attitude and thinking, and service is not the name of the game. So if you go for marketing, if you go for sales, if you go for finance, these people all, especially also the service department, do have a service and an expectation attitude. And this is a game changer. And this is a fantastic opportunity. Knowing your company for such a long time, and knowing you and Larry Augustin and the old days, and Phil Winters and a lot of other people, and Daniel Heck, one of the chaps which was then in marketing, and I knew from his publishing side. This was quite thrilling to see how the company is developing and is making its move and its next steps and all that. And I remember very well when on a CeBIT, you were my customers, and I organized a lot of stuff just spontaneously, such as you needed some more space, you needed your private rooms and your area of, let's say, get into serious conversations with your business partners and such. And this was easy to organize. This is when I got the blanket, for instance, on one of the CeBIT shows. And since then, this is why I take the point so valuable. Insignio, Devo team, ISC, especially ISC Jörg Madloch. Whenever he is with a customer and I'm in a pitch as a software selection consultant, he tells that he went for Sugar because the guys, were opening him a window where he could add into a solid foundation his sector expertise. And this is something which I'm really keen, because I believe you are ahead in buying your implementation or your most important implementation partners and get them aboard. And now your friends out of San Francisco in the blue cloud are following high speed and they invest in some other hobbies and visions, yeah, with Slack. But Acumen, the board
That
of
was weird.
I put it from a perspective of a very respected gentleman from an Indian company.
Okay.
He said, this is creating some kind of a Frankenstein. And
Frankenstack. That's what we call it. The Frankenstack.
the Frankenstack, yeah?
The Frankenstack.
Okay. Till now, it was, to me as an analyst and a user of products which I have to consult, I go always for shows or for demo versions and click around and do my stuff. But I'm getting a bit worried and concerned, and put it like I learned it from my Brits. I wonder if they will eat that monster, yeah? If they can again be the Borg and assimilate, because in the last let's say adventures, such as if you look to Quip, and that the look and feel is still not Salesforce like, whereas Steelbrick and Velocity, which is now Salesforce Industries, look very much like they are already born and designed to be Salesforce. I wonder.
I'm curious. I never run into Quip in my world of customers. Nobody ever brings up Quip once. Have you run into it? Do you see it out there? Do you see it being? No, I don't either. Here I'll ask you. Let's take the question or the discussion and cast it through the Microsoft lens for a moment.
Okay.
Where's Skype?
Teams,
Skype's kind of gone, right?
Link or Skype is now Skype for Business, and is now
it evolved. It evolved, and
It has been absorbed into. I think it's been absorbed into Teams. It's not really.
Actually, no. I dug into that. Teams is not the same technology as Skype. So they're sunsetting Skype for Business specifically to replace with Teams. But I think my point in there was Microsoft's approach to Skype was to try and turn it into Microsoft, and it kind of just faded away, right? But what are they doing with LinkedIn? They're keeping it very much its own brand, and I would say LinkedIn is thriving in today's world. Though I am frankly a little skeptical of the amount of spam that I'm getting from LinkedIn at times. It's hard to, what I'm looking for now is the spam filter in LinkedIn, right? which would be a funny thing for them to actually release, right? Because their whole part of their business model is generating income off of that spam. But anyways, that aside, I look at Microsoft and I look at what happened with Skype, what happened with Yammer. By the way, if you know the history of Salesforce and Mark Benioff's fixation on collaboration technology, it actually started with Yammer. It's a pretty interesting story. So back in 2010, whenever it was that Yammer got bought by Microsoft, Salesforce tried to buy Yammer, and they couldn't come up with the right number. Microsoft beat them on buying Yammer, and Benioff, and this is just the story as I know it, so I could be wrong on the exact details, but and built Chatter, right? And there was a lot of noise in the market about Chatter, right?
A lot of chatter
about Chatter, and then time moves forward, and he seems to be somewhat fixated on trying to compete with Microsoft for collaboration technology, which from a strategic perspective, I understand the point, which is, your customer-facing professionals want to be using their CRM tools at the point of interaction with customers, right? They want to be, this is why plugins to Outlook and Gmail are still such critical components of any CRM solution. Yeah. But he seemed really fixated on the collaboration topic and wanting to compete with Microsoft. And my guess is that he saw the There's a good
Just
comment.
as you made that friendly
Michael,
quote,
I agree with you. I agree with you.
our friend Michael is fascinated about the ability. Legal spammer. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting.
Exactly.
Yep.
But I guess my point in there in the end is I've never really fully understood the fixation by Salesforce and Mark Benioff on collaboration technology. And I can from what I can kind of squint at it and understand the perspective that Slack gives him access to customers that he didn't have before. Slack gives him a new entry point into those customers. But on the other hand, I don't know that people are looking to Salesforce as a collaboration technology. It's kind of like Oracle trying to get into the collaboration technology space. Just they don't have the brand around it. People don't look to them. That they look to Google and Microsoft for the collaboration technology. I don't think anybody really looks to Salesforce and try to recast his company as a and that's probably the strategy here is to recast as more than just customer experience and CRM, but to also be collaboration and to ultimately become a full front office and back office suite. If that's the journey he's on, sounds expensive, right?
It is expensive. 27 billion US dollars, roundabout 25 million euros, is not a bargain. And the company itself did, on the 2nd of December, he made the prognosis that he wants to have a turnover in 2023, which is less than he has to pay for Slack right now. So he knows that he is eating a big pizza and a cake and a huge steak in one. So
and there's so much innovation and growth to happen in the customer experience market. There's 10. If you look at every company across MarTech, Sales Tech, and Service Tech, there's like 10,000 companies out there. Why are there 10,000 companies out there? Because so many companies are still adopting front office digitization for the very first time. There's huge growth up. This is a massive market. It's the fastest growing business applications market. And to dilute his focus, I just found that odd, right? I spend the whole time just kind of scratching my head saying, I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm enjoying what we're doing because there's a lot of growth here and a lot of fun here.
Why not thinking in terms of the conversation is the new UI?
The conversation is the new UI. Oh, well, you went very high very quickly there, right? You take the whole next new level.
Well,
you can call it
the next words after that.
Say again, Marshall?
That just sounds good. Conversation is the new UI, but we're all wondering what's the next sentence after that?
What's the next?
I was on a call this morning with a customer of mine, and they're a very pragmatic company. They're in the oil and gas industry, and they've got field service techs out there servicing pipelines in Canada, and they're renting equipment, and they are the most pragmatic of pragmatic buyers, right? If I took to him, Thomas, conversation is the new UI, he'd just stare at me blankly and say, okay, moving on, right? They've got very, very real, very pragmatic problems that they need to solve. They've been struggling with SAP to move off of pen and paper to just a pure digital tablet focused approach for their field service techs and their call center people. They're still struggling getting off pen and paper. They tried to do it for SAP the last 5 years, and finally just gave up and said, I have to throw out SAP. Too inflexible, too complicated. Can't do what I needed to do, and he was already using Sugar in his sales team, and he said, let's bring it all together under Sugar, and our customers, and then again, this is where I stay focused. I stay focused on our customers, right? And there's a lot of the mid-market manufacturing and services companies that have built their business around the recurring customer business model. There's a lot of exciting things happening there, and they're very pragmatic companies, right? And I, on one hand, the strategist in me, the technologist in me loves the idea of conversation as the new UI, moving applications from, the way I described it, at the front end of my career, I was trying to convince people to put down the pen and paper and pick up the keyboard, and now it's put away the keyboard. Now it's put away the keyboard and it's all thumbs and gestures, right? Or thumbs and swiping. And what's next? It's voice and gestures, right? And conversation is the new UI. Voice interface is the new UI coming ahead of us. Absolutely. But I think for many companies, they struggle to connect that vision of the future to the practical reality of today. And I think one of the things that sets SugarCRM apart is that we do a really good job of painting the picture of the future, but being very focused on delivering the value of today and not getting lost in the science fiction of what might be tomorrow.
This is a very nice statement, such as science fiction is Starship Orion in the 60s from Bavaria Studios in the year 2500 and God knows what. And they used flat irons to show some future designs. What you do is you deliver future to buy, you deliver future hands-on, you have a vision, but no funny dreams. You are not daydreamers.
Right.
And this is very impressive because when you see your team, Rich, Greg, yourself, and a lot of the people we met in the summit, which were really impressive and came strongly over as a very powerful team, very committed and positively challenged with what the expectations from the customers is right now, and that you are in a benchmarking to competition, but also creating customers that your customers, for their creation of new customers, are having with you the right tool set in their hands, not at their heads, in their hands.
In their hands, right now.
They grab it.
Yeah.
And they love it.
I threw out the term science fiction in almost a derisive way. And listen, I'm my entire library, I've got over 1,000 books sitting in my library of science fiction. I'm the biggest science fiction fan.
Everything you will find.
I'm not so much Star Trek. I'm more Star Wars, but in there, I've read. Boy, when Disney bought Lucasfilm, it ruined a 5-year investment. I'd spent 5 years reading every Star Wars book. I'd read all 140 books. I'd read the comic books. I was deeply immersed in old canon of Star Wars, and then they bought Lucasfilm, and it was all gone. So I love science fiction. I love reading science fiction. It's my inspiration for where the future is going.
Yeah.
But here's a very personal story. My dad was an entrepreneur, and started several companies. And he started a company in the early '80s called Media Computer Network that was all about connecting public service agencies with media agencies to quickly disseminate press releases, and which was really important at the time of an emergency. I mean, if you think about when the flood is happening or the earthquake is happening, the sheriff department, the fire department wanting to get news out to the public in 1983, the way you did that was you started calling people and you hope somebody answers the phone. So he brought in
ring the bell or a siren,
or exactly. So he brought BBS technology in and created a whole closed ecosystem of communication for email. It was one of the first email systems. Is really what it was. But it was a little too early, right? And then along came 1989, and the open email protocols just killed him, right? And his company, and he didn't know how to shift, right? And he ended up having to declare bankruptcy, right? And his business went, instead of embracing and shifting his business model, he was fixated on his technology, and his technology was a little too early for its time. And then by the time the rest of technology caught up, it just swept him away. Yeah. 5 years later, he's got his next company, and he's doing two-way texting. Do you remember two-way texting? Do you remember the first devices that allowed you to not just receive a text, but to actually allow you to send one back? He built a whole company around that. Again, he was selling into the public service industry, to fire departments and police departments and things like that. That's where he always built his career. And then what happened? Well, you know what happened. 8 years later, these devices or the predecessors to these devices had it built in. And he was always really good at seeing what's coming around the corner, but almost two corners, right? Not just around this corner, but down the street, around the corner, and one more corner. He saw what's coming, and he built a business around it. And it was just it wasn't pragmatic to people at the time. It just didn't connect. They just didn't know how to take advantage of it. But he had the vision, right? And so I've taken those lessons, and in there he on a family level, building businesses that fail doesn't work very well in the home environment, if you know what I mean, right? And for all of us that have been down that path. And so I was a teenager at the time, and it really made a dramatic impact in me as I watched him build his businesses. And my lesson that I took away was to be focused on the innovation that's right here, look to the future, navigate to the future, move to the future, but make sure that you focus on the innovation that's practical and pragmatic to right now, or 6 months from now, or a year from now. And don't get lost in what might be 5 years from now. And that's just a life lesson that I took. And that's how I approach business. And right or wrong, it's the way my brain is constructed.
No, it is definitely the right way. There is very little point in envisioning a future if you cannot come up with a way to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a concept in science fiction, which you're probably familiar with, called retrofuturism, where it is simply people are very often unable to really imagine a future. They take what is current and just move it into the future and put bells and whistles on it. The future is never going to be what you think it is now.
Yeah, where's my flying car, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I really miss it. Yeah,
you have to be able to move with the change that actually happens. And you can try and make that change. But like Sugar, I think that what you are very good at doing is enabling other people, other companies to make that future happen, because you're so easily extensible. I've always thought of Sugar, both in the open source days and now, as kind of the hot rod CRM. This is what you use if you need to customize, if you need to extend, if you need to partner with another brand or another kind of technology. And that's something I think you guys have done very well.
I agree with that, but I would here's a little peek under the covers with us, right? So what you described as the hot rod, we internally call it creating the snowflakes, where no two implementations are ever the same. And there's a huge amount of value in being able to help our customers mold the technology to their business processes, right? And that's been a hallmark of Sugar since day one. But if you think about the value of artificial intelligence, right, about predictions, So let me be very specific. Artificial intelligence is such a broad term. Predictive analytics, machine learning specifically. So if you're looking at the world of predictive analytics, how do you help a company predict what's coming next if every implementation is a snowflake? Where the value of being able to build those predictions is based upon looking at massive data, looking at trends across every implementation around consistent business patterns. So we're putting a lot of work right now into marrying those two worlds together to give you the flexibility of low code, no code configurations to your applications. Note that I didn't use the word customization. I didn't use the word code customization. Low code, no code configurations married together with the power of predictive analytics, where you're working within a slightly more constrained environment so that you get the value of seeing what of knowing or guessing with high degree of accuracy what's going to happen next based upon how others are using the system as well. That's one of the things that we're navigating around right now as we look to the future, because I would argue that if you're really going to look to let the machine do the work for you, let the technology do the work for you, you're needing to live within a certain set of parameters that allow you to leverage that technology and leverage the insights that others have, and not look to build something new every single time. So that's a little peek under the covers of some of the design discussions that the people on Rich's team are thinking about.
Awesome. Excellent.
I love to hear that, because it gives me the opportunity for one of my favorite topics. What are your expectations for emerging trends in 2021? Aside of that, we get rid of that pestilencia COVID.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Yes, sir.
Yeah, boy. So there's it's so hard to think outside of just getting back to normal, right? That's the thing that I think we're all looking forward to more than anything else. And I've got my predictions that come on a kind of the path that we've been on, right? Mm-hmm. And absolutely the case that voice-based interfaces are going mainstream across the board. The conversation is the UI. Is that what you meant, Thomas? By the way, I kind of guessed at that when you said conversation is the new UI. Is that what you're referring to? Is voice-based interfaces?
Voice-based, text-based interfaces. So
yeah.
It's probably first text.
Let me talk to you.
Yeah.
If you read his article, Why Sales Reps Hate Their CRM, it's very much, if we learn to make life easier, not for our customers, but also for our users, we have one winning aspect. Yeah. And conversational UI would be helpful.
Absolutely. So conversational UI, absolutely. In fact, my favorite company in this space right now, the young company, is a company called Exceed, EXCEED. We're customers of them ourselves. We think they've got a great conversational application for lead development. Compete against Conversica. They do all the best things of Conversica and Drift in one application at a better price point, and they're a great team to work with. Really enjoy working with them. Some smart people coming out of the old WebEx team are driving Exceed. So I think that continues to go mainstream across the board. I think if we weren't going to be in a world of, this is going to be really the fascinating thing. So we're going to be in a world for the next couple of years of governments being pressured to get business back on track, and then governments getting pressure to continue to help respect data privacy and personal privacy. I think there's going to be a tension between privacy and back to business that is. It's going to be interesting to see how there's going to be some seams that some paths that open up in there, and some first movers are really going to be able to help deliver value to companies and individuals. So I think that tension is absolutely ahead of us. I think companies across the board are going to move past best of breed CX stack solutions, and there's going to be, we're not the only vendor that's making the move to being best of breed to being a full CX stack. There's if you look across all the companies that Gartner covers, it used to be only 3 or 4 companies offered marketing, sales, and customer service technology. Now there's close to 10 of us that do that. And I think there's enough options in there and enough innovation happening in there, a lot of exciting things happening in there, that I think there's going to be a pretty large move from having to cobble together a best of breed solution and people wanting to work with a single vendor. I think that move is going to that's been one of our key focus points over the last couple of years is that move happening in front of us. Other things that I see happening in front of us is just like the telephone never went away, email will never go away, but SMS and text and all of the vision of what we called social collaboration 6, 7, 8 years ago is absolutely going mainstream in business now. Our business customers, there was a point in time where text-based campaign management was really the world of B2C, but now B2B companies want that across the board, right? The world of communicating with your customer on the channel that they have chosen, and that is not a promise of the future. It's the reality of today, and every company is demanding this as a base level capability in the products, and so you'll see more innovation in that space, but I think you'll see that it just continues to become table stakes functionality across the board. There's a few of my predictions. The big one, I think, the backdrop to all of this, of course, will be the tragedy that's happening right now, and the hundreds of thousands going into millions of people dying. I'm going to make a couple comments here that I have to say that first, right? It is a true human tragedy that's happening right now, and it's it touches the soul, and it gives you a perspective that you should never lose. With that said, business happens. Business is the lifeblood that drives the growth of our society, and business is going to be coming back, right? And the question is, the economy is going to be coming back. What's the pace, right? Is it going to be a rather quick recovery? And quick for me is 2 years, or is it going to be a slow recovery, like 5 years? I think there's so much pent-up momentum out there. I talk to companies every day. I talk to our customers every day, and there's a desire to get back to work, right? Yeah. There's a desire to get going. There's a desire to find the new normal, and if you look back in March and April, there was a lot of hesitancy and uncertainty because people just didn't know what COVID was going to be. But now that we understand it, the impression I'm walking away talking to my customers is that they want to get back to business quickly, that they understand the constraints of this epidemic and how to function, and where we are going to be with where we hope we're going to be with the vaccine. So I think we're going to have I'm optimistic that we're going to have a fairly quick recovery because there's a lot of pent up desire to get back to normal, and I think that's going to fuel a lot of growth, but it's going to be different than it was before, right? I don't see us returning back to 2019. I don't think I don't think 2022 is going to look like 2019, right? I think there's what I've seen across the board is every company that was going to get to a digital transformation project at some point is doing them now.
They have to. Yeah,
they have to because technology is what's going to fuel
transform or die.
Technology is what's going to fuel the recovery. It's going to give us the mechanisms to have more of a contactless way of doing business. It's going to address the concern. It's going to help us address the concerns of what face-to-face contact entails, and in there, I even within our own company, right? We're a digital company since day one, but there's processes in there that we're saying, no, let's fix it now. Now's the time to do it. So there's a lot of investment that's happening. I heard a great line when the factory lines are stopped, you paint the factory. Right? When the manufacturing lines are stopped, you paint the factory. So there's going to be a lot of investment.
Actually did that. They refurbished their stores.
That's right, and that's what's. I think that's going to fuel the rebound that I see coming ahead of us. I think that's going to fuel the growth ahead of us. I think all the discussions we've been having for the last 2 or 3 years around digital transformation, I think are going to go from a nice to have to a must have. And I think that's going to be, I think it's going to work out very nicely for the IT industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, but this is the statement which I made. Sorry, Thomas.
That was a big door opener to one of.
Yeah. It was.
That I find most fascinating, which is there is this CRM vendor, which we won't name currently, with an attendant here in this conversation, who puts a lot of stake on CX. You are now saying a transformation will happen. It's becoming more no touch, low touch, more digital, which to me translates into a necessity of commerce or e-commerce as a channel, which is not there. So now the question to the chief of strategy: why?
You're asking where's the B2B commerce component of our
B2C, or even B2C, both?
Well, we're very focused on B2B. To be quite frank, we've been very focused on. We have a very clear idea of where we deliver the most value and where we focus. So B2B, mid-market, manufacturing, and services businesses built around the recurring customer business model. I cut you off, Ralph. I'm sorry. You were going to say something? No.
I just wanted to share some stuff from our audience, and I want to excuse that I made it so brute, transform or die, but it's
True.
In 2 words, simply the story. Yeah. If you do not manage to get digitalized, and with such pressure in CX, our friends are moving forward in a high speed. And when we looked a bit into what's happening in the different product stacks on the market, and as one example, we miss a bit the commerce option in yours. And so you gave us an explanation, but
I think what you're seeing in front of us right now, Thomas, is we're growing the set of capabilities that we deliver to our customers, and we're growing them based upon to a large degree what they're asking for, right? And also looking to where the market's going. Broad strokes, Thomas, I absolutely see SugarCRM becoming a commerce provider at some point in front of us. I absolutely do. That's a very logical place for us to be. Absolutely, I'm not disagreeing with that. What's the sequence? What do we do first? Where do we put our investments next? I don't see commerce happening in the near term. We've got some areas that we are going to be investing right now in that we're not quite ready to announce publicly here on this. channel, but you'll be seeing some exciting announcements coming from Sugar over the next 6 months ahead of us as we continue to grow.
Hope so.
We hope
so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll give you good things to talk about, no doubt. But
Cool.
there's some very, very there's some things that we need to do first before we get to commerce, I guess is my point. And so I don't see us getting to commerce in the next 1 to 2 years. I see it happening after that. But, at the same time, when it comes to the world of mergers and acquisitions and companies coming together, you can't always predict the timing, right? It takes two to tango, right? It takes two to dance there. So we may not be ready, but if somebody else is ready, who knows? Maybe that'll happen sooner than that. But according to the plan as of now, it's not going to happen in the next 2 years as we focus on some very specific things that our customers are asking for right now.
Talking
What
about
are your
time,
customers
we are on top
asking
of the hour. How much time do you have left before
Yeah.
Ralph continues?
Danke.
I've got a couple more minutes here before I do have to move on.
Make it more precisely, because these two gentlemen are the pop pop for me. If I'm talking too much.
Well, are you asking me to wrap it up with a final set of comments, or
No, I'm just asking whether we should start to go into a wrap up.
We often run over, so we wanted to make sure that if you had to be someplace else, that we didn't make you have to run out in the middle of a sentence.
No, I'm good for 5 to 10 minutes.
Good. What are your customers right now asking for? Such as, do they have an urge in CPQ, or where is the next step which their customers would like to see?
Let's see. Let me kind of lift it up a level a little bit, and rather than pointing to some specific technology places, let me talk about the overall things that our customers are trying to accomplish. So first off, the connection point between marketing and sales is still too immature in the market as a whole, and even within the Sugar product suite. There's more that can be done there. More to enable the marketing department. It's just too much the case that marketers throw leads over the fence and they don't know what happens with them. And sales is saying, where did these leads come from? They aren't any good, right? That tension has been in business since there's been a marketing department and a sales department.
Generations. Yeah.
Generations, exactly. And that problem needs to be solved. And it is solvable. And it's right in front of us to solve it. And we're going to be continuing to put a lot of energy into not just making the handoff seamless, but the collaboration, the working back and forth, the continuous adjustments, the try, learn, adjust, make that whole model really something that breaks down the barriers between the marketing department and
open the silos. Yeah.
Oh, I was hoping we could go without saying silos.
I just waited for the right opportunity.
A sugar silo, not a corn silo, but right. So, anyways, that didn't even make any sense, let alone be funny. But I was trying to work off the silos there, and I would argue that that's true between the sales department and the customer service department, right? Yeah. Too often, it's the case of you sold what? We don't even have that, right? or the salesperson saying, wait, a customer's upset, or you're having a conversation with a customer that I didn't know about. So those silos, sorry, Marshall, the door has been opened. We'll go there again. Those silos do need to be knocked down. They absolutely need to be knocked down. And I would argue that there's another divide that needs to be knocked down, and that's the one between sales and finance, right? So you talked about CPQ. I love the topic of CPQ because it's that connection point, the quote to the invoice is that connection point between what the salesperson sold and what the finance department is invoicing. And there's a whole experience in there, right? For the customer, every step of the way of from the construction of the quote to how the invoice is delivered to the words that are used around that. I mean, I don't know if you've ever, as an executive in the company, I buy software for our own use, and I'm often a primary contact for the software vendors. And I just find it absolutely amazing, these terse emails coming from the accounts receivable department of a software company that really, it's like the worst experience you can imagine, right? So I think the real innovation coming ahead of us, Ralph, over the next couple of years ahead of us is to think about that sales and that marketing and sales connection point, that sales and service connection point, and that sales and even service finance connection point, and really how to bring automation to that. But more than anything else, enable companies to deliver that customer experience that they're looking for, because those handoffs, those connection points frequently expose very immature and unthought through processes and messaging, and you just don't have the tools to make it better. So we're gonna work on making that better, and that's where you're gonna see a lot of the innovation coming from Sugar over the next couple of years.
And Michael made for some time ago the comment that communication changes the UI, and that the telephone is still a remainer, such as email, but will make its pass through other applications to be, at the end of the day, still in use and helping in the communication.
I don't think voice-based communication goes away.
Yeah.
I mean,
with the phone or headset.
Is this the phone? We call this a phone, right?
Yeah.
But is this the phone that you had in 2002? Is this the phone you had in 1992? No, right?
No, it was different. It was a lot different.
Yeah. The voice communication isn't going away, but voice communication will just get embedded into all the applications. And
exactly.
My kids showed me the meme of what does it mean to dial? What am I dialing? What are you talking about? What's a dial? Right? There's no dial on here. And then they actually saw, there's a meme that went around on TikTok about to actually dial a phone. Right? So we may still use the word phone for a long time, or handy, as we say in Germany, right? But the voice communication certainly isn't going away.
No.
Yeah. No. And it changes a lot. And so is your ability to help in taking different roles and departments, next best actions. One of the opportunities which I see arising, that really it's no more future in science fiction or Perry Roden or Star Wars or Star Trek, but that it's real coming through, that we get next best action for marketing, next best action for sales, next best action for service, and next best action also as advisory for the management and the finance department. Because if you see through the technology-driven approaches in finance software, they try to get some assistance to the financial controllers and the chief, the liquidity managers, as cash is king in the moment. Where to adjust.
I say that a slightly different way. I talk about what I want from my customer experience tools. I want this, frankly, from all of my software tools. Tell me something I didn't already know, and tell me what to do next. Simple as that, right?
Yeah, prima.
Tell me something I didn't already know about my customer. Tell me what to do next with my customer. I just
help me.
Help me
Getting
out.
better.
Be my personal assistant. Guide me through my day. That's
And
what I'm.
otherwise, and otherwise stay out of the way.
And otherwise, stay out of the way. Exactly.
Make my life easier and not more complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. Silence.
No,
Well,
9 minutes over the hour, and I talk too much.
Say, I should probably wrap up if you guys don't mind. I do need to get to my next meeting.
Yeah, we highly appreciate you spending the time with us, and probably
it's been a great session.
Possible wrap up is telling us what is your most hated buzzword of 2020. That gives a good wrap up.
So it was my pleasure being here today, guys. I really enjoyed this conversation with each of you. I've known Marshall probably the longest, but got to know each of you really well, and really enjoyed the time. You asked the question, what's my most hated buzzword or phrase of the year? I got to tell you, it's the new normal. I'm so tired of hearing about the new normal. I want the old normal back. Right? So that's probably my most hated new buzzword of 2020 is the new normal, right?
Mm. That is a very good summary, I think.
Yeah.
It's not all about technology, which is great. Thanks for being.
And like I said earlier, I really I think there's a reason why IT companies are doing well in the stock markets today. I think IT companies are going to be a key component of getting us back to the old normal and getting us and fueling fueling the growth of the economy and getting the economy back on track worldwide. I think IT technology as a whole is going to play a critical component in that, and I think it's going to be an exciting time.
It'll be, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Then I started the set. I will close the set. It was a pleasure. You are happily welcomed again with some of your friendly co-people, in the C level, which we have had for some former discussions and looking through the crystal ball. I enjoyed it very, very much. And stay safe, stay healthy, have a fantastic Christmas time. And thank you very, very much that you spent the time with us. And our audience.
Gleichfalls. Absolutely.
Vielen Dank.
Frohe Weihnachten zu alle, and enjoy your holiday season, and looking forward to 2021.
Ja, genau so machen